Welcome to QCC's Face the Region. Face the Region is produced by Quinsigamond Community College to assist our region in attaining educational, economic, and personal prosperity. Good afternoon and welcome to Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipville, and today visiting with Andria Schwortz, who is the Professor of Integrated Science and Physics at Quinsigamond Community College. And the reason we're chatting with her today is because of it. Now, is this is the first time this particular event has happened in a century or two, or how long?
It has been a while. The last time there's been a total solar eclipse in the USA was in 1979.
Okay.
And the last time you could see one here in Massachusetts was in 1970.
Okay, well, so it wasn't a century. But first of all, for the uninitiated, including myself, what is a total solar eclipse? We hear eclipses every few years, but those are lunar and whatnot.
There are two main types of eclipses, solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, and they're named after which object seems to disappear. So lunar eclipses are very common. There's a couple, maybe two in the world every year. And when they take place, you can see them from anywhere in the world. There was actually one on Monday, August 7th. Solar eclipses are less common, and that's when the sun seems to disappear because the moon comes in between the earth and the sun and blocks the sunlight from reaching the earth. Now,
why is this one so special? Why is everybody on all media the last couple of days, that's all I'm hearing about is, I'm going to so-and-so, I'm get a better vantage point. What is so special about this particular eclipse?
So for this particular eclipse, some parts of the U.S. will be able to see a total solar eclipse. And that is when the moon and the sun are just perfectly lined up so that the moon blocks all of the light from the sun. And all that you could see left over is the corona, the upper layers of the sun's atmosphere. Here in Massachusetts, we will not be able to see the total phase of the eclipse. We will only see a partial solar eclipse. But that still will be pretty cool to see.
And so the perfect vantage points, does it kind of draw a line across the country? I mean,
yes.
Is it sort of symmetrical?
Yeah, so there is a line that goes across the country called the Path of Totality. And that goes from northwest U.S. in Oregon, I believe, across the country down to North Carolina or South Carolina.
And it seems like, at least what I've heard from various reports, most folks who are really nuts about seeing it perfectly are headed out west. Is that just because it's clearer skies or higher elevation?
If you want to see the totality, you would have to travel away from Worcester to go see the totality. So a lot of people bought their plane tickets as much as 2 years in advance, booking hotels or campsites to go see it. I myself chose to stay here in Worcester and run an event at Quinsigamond Community College because for me the enjoyment is not just what I see in the sky, but also sharing it with the community around me.
Sure. So tell me a bit about that event. What's happening?
So here at Quinsig we're going to have, I think, 4 telescopes pointed at the sun. This is not something that you should normally do if you own a telescope at home. It is there are a number of safety precautions you have to take to be able to observe the eclipse properly. But we will have solar filters on 2 of these telescopes that will filter out harmful infrared and ultraviolet light from the sun, and much of the visible light as well. And then we'll have 2 telescopes that are set up to project an image onto the screen, so you won't actually be putting your eye up to those telescopes.
I was reading somewhere this morning, or I heard it on another program, also on WCRN, just kidding, about you also can't just wear standard sunglasses or not enough protection to look at it, correct?
That's correct. Standard sunglasses are not good enough. You need to use special eclipse viewers, and so these block out a large percentage of the light coming from the sun. If you're thinking about buying your own online, there are many fraudulent companies and fraudulent devices out there, so be careful where you're buying from. And so these will, the appropriate solar eclipse glasses will filter out not only a lot of the visible light, but also infrared light, which causes heat in your eyeballs, or ultraviolet light, which can cause cancer and other damage to your eyes.
But I guess, and it's just a matter of seconds because the sun is so bright to do retinal damage.
Yeah.
Now again, what if you are looking to buy a pair of these glasses, is there a particular term that you can determine the fraudulent dealers from the real thing?
So there are certifications. I don't remember the exact ISO specs for it, but there is a website organized by the American Astronomical Society that rates and lists a bunch of safe solar eclipse viewers. And so that website is eclipse.aas.org. And they list some good vendors and some good companies to buy from.
And I was also hearing somewhere about there's a phone app that somebody designed that tells you, like, it determines where you are by GPS and how long it will take you to get to a position from where you are to be able to see get a good look at it. So people are pretty ramped up about this. Historically speaking, and I would imagine that there's, folks as far as seeing some sort of a religious aspect to this, or a spiritual thing. Is that part of the history as well with eclipses, or crazy other weather behavior or anything like that?
There's certainly a lot of stories that supposedly Aboriginal people supposedly didn't understand the causes of eclipses. I don't think those stories are actually true, though, because it turns out that a lot of indigenous peoples had sun wheels or Stonehenges or other devices that let them track the movements of the sun and the moon. So a lot of these ancient peoples were actually able to predict when eclipses would occur.
Right, but it's not. There's not a faction of people that are saying it's going to be the end of mankind as we know it once this thing happens.
I think there's always some people who will believe that sort of story, but I haven't heard of any recently. No.
We're chatting with Andria Schwortz, who is the professor of integrated science and physics here on Face the Region, QCC's Face the Region on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. And when we return, we'll find out a little bit more about what you teach here, and again, maybe a little more about this event that's coming up as we prepare for a total solar eclipse. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Stay with us here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Welcome back once again to Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Quinsigamond Community College's program each and every week, talking about the various courses and the opportunities for education, and in this case a chance to see a total eclipse of the sun through the auspices of Quinsigamond Community College. We're talking with Andria Schwortz, who is the professor of integrated science and physics here at QCC. Andrea, tell me, first of all, thanks for coming in, and you seem really pumped about this, which is great, and that's one of the things I've noticed about a lot of the folks, faculty that teach here. There is a true passion. The teachers here really have a passion for A, what they teach, and B, for the students and their well-being and success in their various careers. I just think that's a pretty noble effort. Anyway, so tell me a bit about integrated science and physics and what that entails.
So here at Quinsig, we have a number of courses that are related to astronomy and physics. One of them is this course called Science 105, Integrated Science, Earth and Space. And so it's a course that is part about earth science and geology and part about astronomy. And that is one of our courses with many sections. It has a lab as well. And many students take this course to fill one of their lab science requirements. We have a couple of other astronomy courses, Science 135 and Science 140. And Science 135 is usually offered online. It's a 3-credit astronomy course that covers all of the topics of astronomy. And Science 140 it's another lab course offered here on campus, and that is Astronomy 1 Close to Home. And so that digs a little bit more in depth into the aspects of astronomy related to the solar system and how light works.
Now, how did you get in? You strike me as the kind of person that has always been looking at the heavens as a young kid. Were you that type of person?
I grew up in New York City, so I could barely see the stars.
Oops, wrong on that account.
I think that's part of why I'm interested in astronomy.
Sure.
It was one of these things that fascinated me as something I couldn't see and I wanted to learn more about.
Sure, the curiosity.
Yeah. In high school, I found that I was good at math, but I did not enjoy doing it. And I enjoyed art, but I was less good at it. And when I had the opportunity to take classes in physics and astronomy, it ends up merging those two together because both physics and astronomy use a lot of math that I was good at, and I understood the reason why this math was useful once I took physics and astronomy.
Sure.
And then it also, astronomy especially, also had the pretty pictures that I liked seeing in art.
Sure.
So putting them together really let me combine what I was good at and what I enjoyed.
It seems to me, and it's in my humble opinion, that people don't, maybe I just am not around people who are into astronomy, but people are so consumed with the digital age and phones and virtual reality through the use of computers that they don't really spend enough time sort of contemplating the universe and the little tiny speck we are and as far as that's concerned.
Well,
Do you think that's true?
A lot of technology actually enhances what we can do in astronomy. I always show my students there's a bunch of phone apps where you can just hold the phone up to the sky and it'll show you a map of what you're looking at.
Wow.
And so it can help you find constellations, planets, stars, moon phases. And I think using these sorts of technologies to enhance your understanding of the universe and the world around you it's a great tool and a great resource to be able to use.
So, so as far as the courses you teach, are they laying a groundwork for a bachelor's degree in a related discipline?
The astronomy courses and the integrated science courses are more aimed at people who are not intending to major in astronomy or physics. They're a good introduction to get a little bit taste of astronomy, or to know a little bit more about the world around you and have a larger breadth of knowledge about the universe. I also teach a number of physics courses as well, and those are more aimed at people intending to go into technical fields. So there are two different physics sequences here at QuinSig. The Physics 101, 102 sequence is intended for people majoring in some of the life sciences or automotive engineering, more technical or hands-on sorts of fields. And that sequence is a trigonometry-based sequence. And then there's also the Physics 105 calculus-based sequence. And that course, those three courses, Physics 105, 106, and 205, are aimed at engineering majors, but they're also a really good choice if you did want to eventually go into astronomy or physics as a career.
Right. Having that background in physics as you do, and obviously an aptitude for it as well, I might add, how important is it to have those mathematical backgrounds? Certainly if you're going into any type of design, correct?
Yeah, the math is very important for physics or astronomy. In fact, when I went to college, I actually double majored in math because you had to take so many math courses in order to get a physics major. You might as well just take one more and have a major. So if a student at QuinSig is interested in majoring in physics or astronomy, they would have to take our entire calculus sequence, Calc 1, 2, and 3. I would also recommend differential equations and linear equations. So those math skills are very crucial, very important for physics and astronomy.
And if we had perhaps a listener who happened to be in high school and sort of had this mindset of that's sort of in the direction they wanted to go, what should they be taking at the high school level? Is there a preparatory course?
It depends upon what their school's offerings are. I would say take whatever math is offered at your school. If your school happens to have advanced placement courses, try to take AP Calculus. That would give you a real leg up before you manage to get to college. And some schools will also offer AP Physics, and if it does offer that, that's a good choice as well. But it's also fine for students to come to QuinSig without that sort of math background. I've had students who started with our developmental math course, Math 090, and eventually graduate with engineering and move on to aerospace engineering.
It's interesting. In my particular education experience, which is not huge and certainly not very thorough, I really did not have a very strong math background, nor an aptitude for it, really. And I think I was sort of reticent I just didn't understand any of it, so I kind of shied away from it. What course would you suggest you take so you sort of build an interest in wanting to be able to be more proficient at it? Is there such a course?
Yes, in fact, the course Science 135, Introduction to Astronomy, that course is usually offered online, and it's entirely conceptual, so there's no math involved with it whatsoever. However, it does still have a lot of more complex ideas. So it goes more in depth to the causes of things rather than just memorizing the constellations or the names of the moon phases.
Right.
But it doesn't have that math expertise that some of the other courses have.
Sure. We're talking with Andria Schwortz, the professor of integrated science and physics here at Quinsigamond Community College. One of the big things that's happening, this total solar eclipse in the United States is just a few days away. And when we return in our final segment, we'll kind of review that whole thing, the best place to see it, perhaps some things to think about as far as safety, and again, get an entire picture of what is happening here on campus as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back here on Face the Region on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Welcome back once again to Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfel, and this afternoon chatting with Andria Schwortz, the professor of integrated science and physics here at QCC, in anticipation of a total solar eclipse of the sun here in the United States, and for the first time in, 30 or 40 years now. I've got that correct?
Yes, 1970.
All right, first of all, and I know so many people, and probably a lot of moms are concerned about their kids because it is such a unique thing for young kids to see. First of all, what's the safest way to view a solar eclipse?
The safest way to view a solar eclipse is using either solar eclipse glasses or devices set up by an astronomer who's familiar with the equipment. There's a myth that eclipses are less safe for the eye than the sun on every day, and that's not true. The sun will be just as bright as usual. It will not be any brighter. But because this is a partial eclipse, make sure that you don't stare directly at the sun without any sort of protection at any time during this eclipse. If you were in the path of totality, there would actually be a part of the eclipse where you could look at the sun without any protection, but we won't experience that here in Massachusetts.
Right. Now, what was that? I remember when I was younger, there was kind of this crazy device where you poked a hole in a box and
Yes.
Do they still do that?
Yeah, you're talking about a pinhole camera, and there's
Right.
many ways to actually make a pinhole camera. I'll be demonstrating for guests on the 21st how to make a pinhole camera actually just using your hands. You can actually hold your hands above the ground and kind of interweave your fingers to make small gaps in between them. And when the sun shines through those gaps and onto the ground, you'll see, on a normal day, you'll see small circles, that's the shape of the sun, and during the eclipse, you'll see small crescent shapes.
Right. Now, and again, we talked about being in this digital age. Can you take a cell phone video of it, or is that not a safe thing to do? It doesn't seem like it would be a good idea.
I would not recommend pointing your cell phone at the sun during the eclipse unless you're using some sort of device to make it safer. So just like on a normal day, trying to point your cell phone at the sun on a normal day, it would be very bright and possibly overload your camera. Same during the eclipse.
Sure.
But for any of our guests who come to Quinsig on that day, we will have solar eclipse glasses that you can either hold up to your eyes or over your cell phone camera to take a photo. And any of the telescopes with solar filters that we have set up, you can actually hold your cell phone camera up to the eyepiece and take a photo through the telescope.
Okay, now where and when is this event here on campus?
So here on campus, the eclipse itself starts at 1:30, or I should say 1:26 p.m. on August 21st. We will have people ready to talk to guests starting from 1 o'clock. And the eclipse ends at 3:59 p.m. and we'll have people around until 4 or a little bit afterwards. And that is taking place on the quad or the Fuller Student Center lawn.
Right, great. Now, are they going to have some type of EMT standing by in case somebody's completely overwhelmed by this site? There is a lot of hype, and it's a great thing. It sort of reminds you of the little tiny part we play in the solar system. We really end up being rather small. And I think we talked about this in the first segment a little bit. But historically speaking, is there anything specific to this eclipse that is different from perhaps any others we've seen in relatively recent history?
I think the fact that the eclipse is crossing the majority of the continental United States is a really big deal. It's been decades since we've had an eclipse going across the U.S. I should say decades since we've had a total solar eclipse going across the U.S. We have had partial eclipses since then. And there's many major cities that are actually along the path of totality as well. So people who are fortunate enough to live along that path of totality will be able to see this eclipse.
Now, here in Massachusetts, if they're not able to attend your event here at QCC, is there a specific spot in the local area that you might recommend for people to flock to?
There is anywhere. So you will be anywhere that you can see the sun on the afternoon of Monday the 21st. You'll be able to experience the eclipse.
And I'd be curious, are the forecasters, the Old Farmer's Almanac or any of the soothsayers of weather, is there a forecast outlook for that day? Do they think it's going to be decent? They can't really tell that for 'em.
August 21st is typically about a 50% chance of clouds, unfortunately.
That's a 50-50. That's kind of how New England is in general.
Being a few days out now, they're starting to be able to make predictions. So far, they're saying at least a 60% chance clear.
Right.
So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We will have a large digital sign or TV screen hooked up to a computer, though. So if it is cloudy here, we'll make sure to have a live stream up of a internet version of the eclipse that's being recorded somewhere else.
Sure, I would imagine.
So at worst, we'll have that.
Sure, yeah, you can always go to Mr. Google and I'm
Yes.
sure find something happening. And again, if folks are listening here and captivated by astronomy, how would they get involved if they wanted to come to the campus and find out more about your programs?
So if they wanted to take more courses here at QuinSig, we do have a number of astronomy courses. Science 105, 135, and 140 are the ones I would recommend for astronomy specifically. If people are interested in eventually becoming an astronomy major or a physics major, I would actually recommend they take our engineering program here, because the engineering program takes them through the majority of our physics and math offerings here, and those are both important for astronomy.
And I'd be just curious, so if you are planning a career in astronomy, what are the types of fields you can go into, and where would you find employment in the field of astronomy?
So there are many different career possibilities after a degree in astronomy. Options include going into research astronomy, most of which would either be at a research university, or there are a number of specific research institutions. For example, in Boston is the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, and these are places where you can do astronomy research as your career. Many people also become teachers, ranging from middle school through community college,
Yeah.
or even four-year schools. And people who get careers in astronomy also learn a lot of other technical skills, including programming and working with equipment. So sometimes people will go into other more mechanically minded fields or computer programming type fields. Anything from Silicon Valley startups to even working on Wall Street predicting the stock market.
So it's not just stargazing
No.
and trying to find out what your horoscope is.
Certainly not horoscopes.
There you go. Andria Schwortz, a real pleasure chatting with you. And once again, give us the details on the viewing and the little event here on QCC.
So on Monday, August 21st, from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock, we will have safe viewing of the partial solar eclipse. I should say the eclipse is total, but from here in Worcester, we'll see a partial solar eclipse. And that'll be located on the West Boylston campus on the Fuller Student Center lawn, also called the Quad.
Great. Thanks so much again. And if folks wanted to find out more about the courses, they just go online to QCC? Or?
Yep, you can just go online to QCC's website or the Q.
All right. Happy stargazing to you and continued success in your teaching. It's doing a great job. Thank you so much. That'll do it for this edition of Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. We'll talk to you next week.
This has been Quinsigamond Community College's Face the Region. Join us again next weekend on AM 830 WCRN.